Right now, I had this thought that you guys always have a variety of questions for me, especially right now, leading into training camp. So much NFL to talk. You also tend to ask me a lot of dumb questions when I'm in here hosting the show. So I said, why don't we write them all down? I'll fish them out of this here helmet.
Dumb is so strong.
And let's see. Let's just find out. I'll do my best to answer whatever questions you put in here, as long as they're not going to get me fired.
Drum roll.
Here it comes. Let's get the first one up
Questions
here.
in a helmet.
First one. From the helmet o' questions.
Helmet of questions.
You really folded the hell on
Here
these.
we go.
Who is the player before your time you wish you could have seen play?
Oh, I like that.
That's a great question. I would go to some of the old quarterbacks, the Y.A. Tittles of the world, the guys who, Bart Starr's another one. The dudes who, when you watch back on their highlights, they're not throwing the football a whole lot, but they're making throws that you're like, that would play in the NFL today. Terry Bradshaw was essentially before my time as well. You go back and watch Terry Bradshaw, like Super Bowl highlights. He's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And
He gets
again,
no credit either,
I think he was what was he, 10? There was one Super Bowl, it was on NFL Network the other day, and he was like 10 for 23 passing in the fourth quarter. You're like, how in the world? But then you watch the throws he's making, the style that they were playing. These are 2024 NFL-type passes. So I'd say that combination of players.
I like that.
All like the old Hall of Fame quarterbacks. I would love to go further into those.
Since that's a great question, I love that. Real quick, what about you, Chris? Just quickly, is there someone that pops into mind?
Ooh, I was thinking running backs. I was thinking Jim Brown, O.J. Simpson, guys like that.
Jim Brown is who popped into my head as soon as you read that question, Tom. It would have been amazing to watch him live. to see the destruction.
Just that story Rich always tells about Merlin Olsen having visions of running over Jim Brown, and he makes the play. He has him lined up, and he comes to see Jim run 70 yards down the sideline. That's the thing that I think about all the time, like those types of players.
Exactly.
Earl Campbell.
I got to see the tail end of Earl Campbell as a little bit. I never saw Jim Brown, and
even like Franco and Tony Dorsett, guys like that.
All right, let's go back to the helmet here.
Helmet question 2. Mike, we need a drum roll.
I know. I was going to do it. But
who is going to be the breakout star of 2024? Which I presume is the NFL breakout star of 2024.
That's a good presumption. Could just be any type of star. Glenn Powell's having a moment. You know what I mean?
As the person who wrote that question, I'll just say I did mean NFL, by the way.
NFL breakout star. So are we talking rookies? Are they included? I always think breakout is the guy who hasn't done anything for a couple of years, and then now he's...
By the end of the season, we're like, that guy is a star in this league.
I'm going to say Bryce Young.
Okay.
Wow.
I think that...
He was the number one pick, so it makes sense.
The bar has been set so low really by what a disaster last season was on every level, right? It could not have gone worse. It could not have been a worse combination of the scheme, the coaching staff, the way he was being coached, the supporting cast, injuries. It was everything with Bryce Young. So if he's even shows that he's a functional quarterback, it kind of reminds me of Tua, right? After Tua's first season with Brian Flores, and it was he's benched, he's in and out of the lineup. What are we doing? And then he comes back. It's a new staff. It's a new vibe. And he becomes a really good quarterback who, depending what ends up taking place in Miami, is going to be making $50 million plus per year. I think that Bryce Young can have a similar trajectory. The reasons that I believe in Bryce Young, besides the fact that they have addressed the offensive line, they brought in new coaches with him, but it's the way that he's wired. It's everything that I remember in the pre-draft process, hearing about him, how smart he is, how fast he processes, how much he wants it. Yeah, he's not the biggest guy and he doesn't have the biggest arm, but all those intangibles are there. Guys like that tend to have a pretty low fail rate, and we can describe fail in different ways. Mm-hmm. Is it all on Zach Wilson that it didn't work out in New York? Probably not, but he certainly just didn't play good enough. We saw Zach Wilson play pretty good football at times. Yeah. There was more bad than good when you broke it down, and they had to move on. We're nowhere close to that yet with Bryce Young. So let's see him again, and let's find out what Bryce Young actually has under different circumstances. Still has pressure, but I don't think nearly the level of pressure and expectation that he did a year ago.
Hey, look at you, Mike.
I like that.
Here it comes.
Now we're talking.
When does Bill Belichick coach again, and with whom? That is a fantastic question. I believe, I know this, Bill Belichick intends to coach in 2025. He's staying engaged in the game. He's showing up to roasts. He's now going to be on Inside the NFL. We've seen him showing up to different events and high school, at the Manning Passing Academy. I would anticipate that he's out. We saw him at the University of Washington, where his son Steve now is the defensive coordinator. He'll be out. He'll be trying to better himself. He'll be trying to remind you that he's not Darth Vader, that there's more to Bill Belichick. He's done a good job of that so far. There's media stuff. He did win a sports Emmy, right, Brockman?
He did.
Unlike this show, he won a sports Emmy.
He has one.
For his work on NFL 100.
Figure. I don't know.
I thought you had one. I didn't. Rich has a bunch of Emmys up in there. I thought one of them had to be for the show.
Well, Tom, the thing is, it's an honor to be nominated.
It's not.
That's true.
That's total crap.
I haven't been nominated. I don't know how that's possible.
I'm telling you,
no nominations for me.
Don't listen to him. It's
You're
an
not
honor
first,
to be
you're last.
nominated.
I will say, or to answer the question,
handicap it.
He's fully invested in. He wants to coach again. He wants to pursue the all-time wins record. Those are things that really matter a lot to Bill Belichick. Where is that going to be? I think that it's going to depend on a lot of different factors. I know that everybody's been connecting him to Dallas because he has a relationship with Jerry Jones. I don't see that. I'm not saying it won't happen. I'm saying I don't see that as a fit. Number one, yes, Mike McCarthy's in a contract year. He's won 12 games each of the last 3 years. They got to do better in the playoffs. He knows that. Everybody knows that. I don't sit here and say I think Mike McCarthy's not the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys in 2025. But also, even if he's not, I don't really see Bill Belichick functioning in an environment where Jerry oversees personnel, where Jerry gives press conferences after games, where Jerry runs everything the way that Jerry wants to. I mean, Jerry split up with Jimmy Johnson after 2 consecutive Super Bowl wins. If him and Bill Belichick can't be 100% on the same page, if Bill Belichick's walking to the podium at AT&T Stadium and being told, yeah, Jerry just was outside saying he didn't like that play call on 3rd and 7. How's that going to go over? I cannot imagine that that's going to come out well. I think that with Belichick, you have to look at what are the places that are in good shape from a quarterback perspective. Either they have one or they have the resources to get one. Who is in shape from a salary cap perspective, where they've got the ability to build things a little bit more quickly, where he doesn't have to go in there and spend 2 years making hard personnel decisions, cutting guys, trading guys just to get things back, because he's going to want to be able to get this thing rolling. He's not getting younger. Bill's what, 73, I believe? 72 or 73.
You're only as young as who you're dating, Tom. You know what I mean?
I'm going to leave that one right there. I'm glad, if there's a question in here about that, I might have to pass.
72.
But I think it's got to be a spot where he's got a quarterback who can get one. He's got cap space to go get additional players, and where he's got the type of organizational setup that he thinks he can succeed in. So you've got to be thinking about the stable organizations, maybe some of the blue blood organizations, and the owners who are going to let Bill Belichick be Bill Belichick. It doesn't have to be the same way it was in New England. This stage of his career, Bill probably knows he'd be better off having a strong personnel person that he's working with. And he had that in recent years with Elliot Wolf, who's now the head of whatever his title is, football director.
Scouting or director?
It's not, director of scouting. It's not GM, but it's essentially GM. He probably knows he needs somebody like that with him here. So it's not Bill needs all the control, but he does need the right spot to set up the program the way that he thinks he needs to. When you use a helmet and not a fishbowl, which was my original idea, things come out the face mask sometimes. Who will be the most successful quarterback in the next 5 years? Caleb, Jayden, or Anthony Richardson?
Ooh,
so Caleb Williams, Jayden Daniels, the top 2 picks in this year's draft, and then Anthony Richardson, the number 3 pick in last year's draft.
Who's basically a rookie this year.
I mean, he started 4 games and got hurt in 3 of them.
Yeah.
He made some hellacious plays. With Richardson, it's literally about getting time on task. He's got every physical attribute. He's 6'5", like 245. He's got a cannon for an arm. Did suffer the injury last year. Obviously now he's had the shoulder repaired. Everything seems to be pointing in the right direction. He missed the last day of the mini camp because he was dealing with soreness, but I was told he threw like 130 balls or something crazy the day before, so just eased off him. Everything seems fine in that regard, but he is going to have to learn how to take care of himself. Cam Newton is the biggest human who's ever played the game. And Cam Newton, after his MVP season in 2015, never got back there because those hits add up. The beating on you adds up. You're just not as physical and as fast years later, even if you can still throw the ball down the field. With Cam, a big part of the way that he was so effective when he was at the top of his game was they were willing to run it so much with him. They ran so many designed runs and zone read and quarterback draws that you had to put somebody else in the box to deal with him. When you do that, you got one-on-ones all over the place. And so he can pick you apart and throw the ball down the field. Anthony Richardson is going to be a similar type of formula, but you don't want to be running Anthony Richardson 15 times a game. You want him to develop as a passer. He only started, you guys can cross-check me on this, like 13 games at Florida. So he barely played in college. He barely played as an NFL rookie. You saw the flashes, but he's not consistent yet. He's certainly not consistent enough in terms of accuracy. He's got to get used to the speed of the game. When you miss that much time, look at Deshaun Watson. He missed, basically 2 full seasons, and it's taken him time to be able to kind of get into the rhythm of this thing. It's just, he needs to be out there more. So we haven't seen Caleb Williams play. We haven't seen Jayden Daniels play. I think that all of them have really interesting attributes. They're 3 totally different dudes. Caleb is shorter. He's kind of thickly built. He's going to make a lot of off-schedule plays. Jayden Daniels is, as one scout put it to me before the draft, he's got Merton Hank's neck. He's this slender-built guy. He weighed like $190 when he was at Arizona State. He's bulked up now, but he wants to run the football, but he does a lot of his damage from the pocket, and he's another guy who needs to learn he can't take these ridiculous hits. He took cartoonish types of hits at LSU. He's not going to be able to do that in the pros. I would say just by virtue of the fact that Anthony Richardson has had a year in the league, even though, again, he barely played, I think there's more upside to be unlocked because he hasn't played as much. But all 3 of those guys, if I'm a fan of any of those teams, I'm excited about all 3. We still got more.
Start bench cut those 3 guys.
We didn't get...
Start bench cut those 3 quarterbacks in the next 5 years.
Start bench cut?
Yeah.
I would say just because of the uniqueness of Jayden Daniels' game, that would be the one you cut. In terms of if you're just saying, if you're mapping this out from an analytic perspective here, who has the best chance at success? I mean, you can also make the case that Anthony Richardson is the one to cut because there's something to be said for a lot of starts. There are coaches in the league who are big believers. If you have... it used to be that it was like the 25, 30 start threshold. Now it's like Bo Nix started 52 games in college. And there's coaches who like that. Sean Payton's one of them. Right. So Anthony Richardson, I mean, between one of those two.
AFC also more difficult right now, right? The AFC's more difficult.
I mean, there's that too.
Yeah.
Caleb's in a really good spot. I think that the more that I dug into Caleb pre-draft, the more I came around on the idea that this guy has a really good chance to be successful in the NFL. Because for all the talk about, the cars he's driving, he lives in the penthouse and he paints his nails and all this stuff, like he's into fashion, he likes to travel the world. Everything that I heard back from the scouts, coaches who went through there was this guy's teammates love him. He, when the backup quarterback has a birthday party, Caleb shows up. When he goes to the Heisman ceremony, he flies out all of his offensive linemen with him. There was one story, I might have the details on this slightly wrong, but it was along the lines of he bought Beats headphones for all his teammates. Then he realized he didn't get them for the support staff, and so he went out and bought like all the other people around the building headphones or some type of a gift as well. So he does understand it. He's been groomed for this since he was a little kid. Let's see here in the coming years what takes place. But right now, you give me one of those 3 guys to start, I'll take Caleb Williams.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.